So that wasn't being recorded?
No.
Oh, good.
Oh, yeah. No, I just started now.
Okay.
Hey, everybody.
Okay, welcome everybody. Thanks for coming to my demonstration. I feel very honored to have so many people who have stayed afterwards today.
Hey folks, she's getting ready to do her demo.
We're going to let Joy get everybody settled.
So if you want to see her demo, come on up front. Move up front so you can see.
No, that's all right. That's all right. I mean, for you to see, it's all about how you can see. Whatever makes it comfortable. If anybody has trouble seeing, you can move in closer. But it's really not brain surgery. It's just doing a demo on how I do pet portraits. It may not be the way Colleen does them, because she does wonderful paintings, but she works in oils. I work in pastels. That's my medium. I feel most comfortable. And you'll see how dirty I get, and I love it. I get really into it. And so I can do pretty quick. I'm going to do a quick sketch demo today, because we don't want to be here for 4 hours. It usually takes me about 4 hours to do one of my typical pet portraits. I've got a cat up here. I might even attempt to show you doing a dog that I pulled off the internet. This little cat I recently did for a friend of mine, and so I already went through the process of doing it. I picked this picture because I love his eyes. And to me, the pet, whatever it is, a dog, cat, an owl, a pig, whatever you're doing, is all about the eyes and the expression, because that's what we fall in love with, especially dogs, when they have those puppy dog eyes and they look up at you and they have so much expression. And, you know, believe it or not, dogs have eyebrows, like human beings have eyebrows. And theirs is a little bit harder to see the eyebrows, but the eyes tell it all. So I'm going to just show, I also went through and laid out the painting at home with a white marker. You can barely see it, but it'll help me to get into it a lot quicker. That's part of the hardest problem, is getting the true likeness. Trying to get the sketch made so that if you all see, it's very light. It's enough for me to see, but as I start working, you'll see more in depth what the layout of the pet is. Okay, I'm going to start now, and I'll just work and you see me.
For us neophytes like myself who've never done anything with pastel, can you tell me about your paper?
Oh yes, this paper is I work strictly on Canson brand name, and it's called Miteintes, and it's Miteintes, and it's available in sheets at Blick. It's available in pads at Michael's and Hobby Lobby. But it's a Canson brand, and it's Miteintes. There are other brand names. I happen to prefer this one. And one of the things I like about it is it actually has textured paper on one side and the smoother side on the other. And since I blend a lot, I tend to go with the smoother side. Some people like the texture, and that texture has more tooth. I don't know if you all have ever tried pastels, but there's a lot of dust to it. And so you want to have the tooth in order to hold it, so it's not dusting off. And you'll see me working at it and see if you want to attempt it. It's a little bit like charcoal, but it's a colored charcoal. But it also has a binder to it. Pastel is the same pigment as you would use in oils or in watercolor or in acrylics. But it has a binder to hold it, so it becomes a thick, I'll show you right here. This is Mount Vision brand, made right here in Tampa Bay. And this has a particular, very nice, you can blend it. And my fingers are my instruments. And I also use other instruments called stumps, or tortillons in French. And these do help to get the details. And then what I do is I come in with my pastel pencils for the eyes and for the whiskers and all the final details. So I pretty much start with my largest color, which is usually the background color. And with pastels, you start with the darkest color first, and you put down all the darks. Then you build, and you get lighter and lighter as you build, because you can go layer over layer over layer, but it depends on what color you're layering. So the way we're going to start is by, obviously he's got a lot of brown tone to him, but he has a lot of darks too. So I'm going to go ahead and lay in some of the darks, which are in here. And I'm working real quick here. I don't usually just dive right in like this as much as I'm going to do here. But just to get it down on paper, he's got a lot of, okay, so I'm going to really get that dark color down. And then in here, I'm gonna go ahead and get that spread out a little bit more like that. And I use a very sketchy style, but I also go in and get a lot of details too, so. But from years of practice, I can do it pretty quick. I've been doing this since 1966. I actually started at the Chicago Academy of Fine Art, and I had a wonderful portrait artist that taught me who was from Romania. Gustav Lichen, and he liked me. He used to call me Irish Beauty. And he took a liking to me, and he had done Jacqueline Bouvier, Kennedy. He had done the woman who was, I guess at that time, the Hilton chain, the daughter of the Hilton chain, many famous people around the world. So he liked my work, and he helped teach me a lot of his style.
Have you only worked in pastels?
I have tried watercolors, I've done architectural renderings, I do a lot in pen and ink, very detailed, totally different from this. And I'm not even juried in to do pen and ink here, but I used to do it in Vermont. And I do like the Currier and Ives type homes. And so yeah, I'm not really doing that very much here, but now I'm going to go into some of the brown tones that we see in here, because we see a lot of brown, especially in this. See, I can put the brown right over the black. And I'm actually really not working the way I usually do. I usually spend most of my time on the eyes. And the eyes are the most important thing. If I don't get the eyes right, I'm not even going to go any further. The eyes are the most, and I'm sorry about you people that can't see behind my back, but I gotta sort of get right into it here.
What did you say the name of your pastel was? Mount what?
Vision.
Are they
It's
on the website?
in Tampa.
Do
They
they have
do have a website. I went to the factory. It's a wonderful place. It's way in a neighborhood that you would never find it in Tampa. But they have a whole variety, and the sticks are very fat compared to New Pastel. I like New Pastel because they're a harder pastel, a little bit easier to draw with. These are good for laying down a lot of color. They have nice, I got all the gray tones. As you can see, I have a lot of gray tones. So I got mostly the neutrals. Here's another lighter brown that if I wanted to put this around the eye, I can get, you know, lighter color like that. And it doesn't, I'm not getting into too much detail now, I'm just laying down color. I just want to get a lot of chalk on the paper. And then later on, we're going to work on the details. Like get his cheeks pretty light in there. And you know, usually I try to keep my fingers clean. in between going from color to color, or at least switch fingers. And I'm kind of doing it a lot quicker than I would do this at home, but let me see, I gotta get that mouth in now. The nose, I've learned about cats' noses, they're very little tiny things. And then you've got these things coming down. And this kind of comes down straight from there. But we're gonna go back over these details a lot. And then that eye. I usually have a drawing board where I'm looking down and I'm over it. So this is kind of awkward for me standing up next to it. But I have to do it so you can see. When you do a cat's eye, they have a very high, and then whatever those things are in the middle are way down here. They're way down in this area. And then now, did you ever notice a cat's pupil? It's not round. It's like a diamond shape almost. It's got a point at the top and a point at the bottom, like that. And this one, it's kind of cut off by the top. And the pupils, of course, are going to be black. And the eyes are going to be green. Most cats have a beautiful green eye. Some of them are more of an amber color or orangey almost. But most of them have greenish, like I think that's just about like that. And of course this one he's a Maine Coon, so he's got the M on his forehead. So we've got the little markings here that come down and goes like that, and then just like that. And he has ears. And the ears are not sitting up here on top of the head, they're in the forehead and just above the eyes. You'll see they're starting in here. Okay, and they have lots of hair around the bottom of the ear. In fact, later on you'll see me go with this little, they got hair in here. So, okay, let me see what's next. The mouth. I need to get that mouth in there. So his mouth is very tiny. It's very hard to see. It's just a little tiny, like that, right under the nose. And just slightly shaded. It kind of goes like that. And then this little chin peeks out. Now we're going to get into some of the shading. He has stripes going on. I probably shouldn't have gotten a subject that has so much detail in his fur. It takes more time to develop all that detail. But just to show you an example of how it goes. His eye goes way up. And that's where I get into the smaller details, is where you want to bring out your stumps and do more work on.
And the
Final
stumps just
detail.
help spread what you've already laid down, is that correct?
What's that?
The stumps just help move?
They help move. These stumps are wonderful. See how dirty it is already? Look how dirty my hands are. They help move, and you can actually draw with them too. Like I can go in and
with what's left on
work.
there.
Yeah, so you can, like I can even use it as part of my make markings on here, and drag the chalk around. I'm doing this very sketchy, and it's much more sketchy than I would do. I would do it a lot more carefully if I was at home, but just for the sake of getting it done, I want to do more here just to show the basic effect. But what's fun is not laying down with the basic colors, it's the final marks that are the fun part, because that's where it all comes together and it starts really looking good. So again, I'm going to work on those eyes. I don't even think I brought a green. I have no greens. I have no greens for my eyes. I was trying to just bring a limited palette. Oh, well, here, I have one in here. Pencils. There's a green. And then so once I get all that down, now the fun part comes. I'm going to take yellow and go around that green and bring out that eye. And then this one here. I think my pencils need sharpening. And then this. Well, let's just make it a V for now. I can go in and fill that in. I'm not worried about too many mistakes because you can always go over it.
Have you worked with the UArt paper?
What's that?
Have you worked with the UArt paper?
Yes, that is a totally different type of painting though. I
Yeah.
don't do it many times for pets. What I use, the UArt paper, it's a grit paper. It's like sandpaper. I use that on a landscape. And what I'll do for that is, if I was doing a wood scene and you have a dark woods, I would take my UArt paper, paste it down, and sketch out the darker tones, and then take rubbing alcohol and paint like a watercolor through the marks of the pastel on the UArt paper. It's not impervious to the water or alcohol. So it's like a thicker, like a watercolor paper would be. You couldn't do any water on this type of paper at all.
No.
This is strictly dry. But on the UArt paper, you can add and make like a watercolor wash, and they call it an underpainting. And once you've done all your darks on the underpainting, and maybe where the green trees are gonna be, you just paint it some green, just a light medium green. And then the road, I've done like a path where I had like a beige or whatever. And I just do a total watercolor out of chalks blended with this alcohol. Then you let it dry for about 15 minutes maybe. And then you go in with your chalk on top of that, and you've got the darks already there. So it takes a lot quicker to build on top of that. And that's what I use the U-Art paper for, more for landscape.
Good, thank you.
You can probably do it on this one too, but I've just never done it. See, I'm so anxious to get into my pencils because I love the details, and that's where all the little special, characters come through on the, see the side of his nose has some black in there, and we have a little bit of black going on over here. Yeah, he's got a lot of fur. Going out like that. And then, let's see, maybe I'll just put this out here. You see a definite dark under his chin, where all the, so I have to keep that line because that's very distinctive where his, the beginning of his darker fur comes out from under his chin. He's got a light chin. So I'm going to go ahead and create that shadow effect right now. And of course, you always do your strokes in the direction of the way the hair grows. You wouldn't do it like this just to fill the colors in. You go in the direction that it naturally would grow. Now I'm going to go in and do some of the lighter coloring that you have. This little chin area is like almost ivory. So I'm going to make sure and get that color down. And then we've pretty much got most of the chalk on the paper that we want for the basic blocked out. I call this being blocked out painting. Then I go in with the fun strokes that, give it the definition. And then you can always, I get my pencil mixed up and everything, but I'm going to keep this separate here. See, now I can clean this up. I don't know if you all know about kneaded erasers. Does everybody know what a kneaded eraser? All I know is I knead it. And I knead it like this and clean it and make sure that it's got a nice clean edge to it. And then I can clean my surface wherever I don't want chalk. Because sometimes I get sloppy. I get fingerprints on things. And I may or may not do a background to this. There's so much going on, I probably don't need much of a background. I kind of went out of the lines here, so I'm going to clean that up. So I don't worry about making too many mistakes because I can always cover over it or erase it. That's one thing I like about it. I suppose you can do that to a certain degree with paints too. You can paint over something that you don't like. All right, so now we're getting down to the final details of the... Now they have these little dots. Do you see how cats have little dots where their whiskers are? They're kind of like in a row, a couple of them. And they're over here too. Well, this isn't. I'm not getting much out of that. And then just gently over with your finger. I always dap it a little bit. And then this here is another color brown. And then I see some variation in the fur. So now I'm going after, I got the darkness on the nose. Now I'm going to create those two little lines here. And then you want to create texture. And
Is that
sometimes
new
it's just-
pastel?
This is a pastel too.
Oh, okay.
This is all pastels. They're either pastel pencils or this is actually a stick.
Okay.
This one is Blick's own brand, Blick pastels. I buy a lot of their colors
Oh.
because you can go and replace it stick by stick, color by color, rather than getting a whole set. So I just go in for get the colors I want. And they're less than $2, or they're $2.79 each. So I buy them, a couple at a time. I think if you buy 6 or more, you get a break. Okay, so now we're gonna go in with the textures. I love textures on fur, on pets. I've done all kinds of dogs that have multicolored fur, and it's really fun when you go in. And again, the more time you want to spend on it, the better the outcome will be. I'm doing it super quick here, but just to give you the overall idea of how it goes. Working dark to light. And now I'm going in for those details on the eyebrows, like around the forehead. He's got some hair over above this eye that I see, some little lighter coloration. I didn't do much with the ear. So get a little bit darker in here. Once you put the darker down, you can put that shadow in there. And then the last thing will be the whites. The hairs. Whiskers. Actually, I don't want to do whiskers yet. That's really like the last thing. I have some more work to do around the face area. So this has some more darkening in here. He has some fur on this side that needs to be filled in a little bit more. And now the last thing will be these colors. Now I want to do the light colors. He has a lot of light in that collar. And you can make your strokes gentle if you just want to do a light color and blend it in. Or you can make it really bold and make it really pop. Depending on how much brightness you want that line to have. So I think he's got a little bit lighter on this side. And you kind of stand back and look at the overall, see how he must have the sun coming in on this side of him, the light is from that direction. So this whole side of the body is going to have a little bit lighter fur coloring, a lighter everything. So you want to keep your darks and your lights in mind while you're doing this, because you can get lost, if you don't think about that while you're doing it. This side is obviously much darker up here. So like it starts in around here, where actually it's quite dark in there for contrast. You want to show contrast because this is a painting. It's not, you don't want to take it literally. You want to just make sure that the end product is a piece of art. You don't want to get lost in just the features of the cat. You want it to look artful and painterly, a painterly style, I call it. Okay, so we got some variations. So, and then you can get into these fur strands are really pointed. They're not just choppy. They've got beautiful long fur pieces that are in this area that you'll see. And you want to mark it down little by little into very long strokes like that. And actually he has a lot of color in it. He has a lot of rust in here. So you'll see more rust colors coming in. You can layer and layer and layer until you've got that rich quality fur. I love working on fur. And let's get back to his face because we have some of this color in his face. Kind of a russet. And then I have a another dark color. Is that right? No. Okay, here, this is. I'm gonna define under the eyes a little bit more. Oh, it squeaks. It's like chalk on a chalkboard, isn't it? I used to hate that when my nuns used to do chalk on the chalkboard, and it would drive me crazy. Okay, so then over here. And it's kind of coming to life. You have a little bit of a details will make all the difference in the world, those final details. Just showing, looks like war paint the way it's got this markings all over the space. And then that mouth will get, it's not real dark on the photo, but I want to make sure it's in balance with everything else that's going on. Well, I got dirty fingers. That's why I constantly have to do this to get my fingers to. What I usually use is wet naps, or if I'm at home, I'm in my studio, I have my kitchen sink right there. So I get up about 5 times while I'm doing a painting and keep washing my hands to try to give it a fresh start. So let's see, what do we need here? This little mark goes here. I kind of go back over the original. Here's needs more darkening in here. And over here a little bit. And then, oh, yeah. This is a furry one. He's got a lot of fur. Very fuzzy. Over here it's kind of like that. And how over here, yeah. Need to get this a little darker. And then all right, now we're getting close to the end of this one, so I'm going to go ahead and put my whiskers in. They're always, look how many whiskers this cat has. Lots of them. And we're going to go for that sparkle in the eye. I don't know if this is good enough. I'm going to go for a white chalk. Get a nice, good white chalk to put that sparkle in the eye, like that. And it does matter where you put that sparkle in the eye. You can't just put it anywhere. It has to make sense, because it really stands out if it's not in the right place. And if you make a mistake, you can always go back over it with your black. There. Like I said, it's real hard to stand here and paint against the surface. I'm more used to doing it down, but what I also use, because it's real hard to get, without being too dirty, I have a bar that I lean against the drawing, and I rest my hand on that bar. And Tommy's shaking her head. Do you know what it's called? I can't remember what they call it.
Yes.
But it really helps. It helps you get that control, huh?
It's called a rigger.
There you go. Jim knows on it. Yeah, because that helps you a lot with getting, when you're getting into details like this, you need to get your hand against something to get it tight. So,
Don't you lay tissue on top of it so you can put your hand with tissue on
well, you
top?
could do that too, to make sure you're not leaning right. I've done that before. I put it right here, and then I've got this whole area that I just worked on is all blotted out. So, especially if you're standing up at a, see, doesn't that look a little bit better? Actually, I'm finding out that my chin, I've got too much chin. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to carve it out and get rid of it. There, I can blend it down there and get rid of that excess chin. Because it's really only a tiny little chin. Cats don't have much of a chin. They're very small. So I can just blend this into the fur. That's what I love about pastels. It's very forgivable. You can go over it and over it. And I guess the hair on top is, I already made it quite dark, so you're not going to see a lot of fur, but you can go into, show a little bit of the fur sticking out there on top of his head to show the texture.
Alice, do you use a finish spray on your pastels? Some people do, some don't.
I do actually do a light spray. What I do is I take it outside and I go shh like that, and just a light. But
At the end?
I'm worried about spotting though, and you have to make sure you have a good can of spray. Don't use it when it gets down to the end. It'll really
Leave
clunk
wet
up and
spots.
it leaves freckles all over your painting, and that's the worst thing that you could do. So I really am very delicate about it when I put a spray on, but it really does help to hold it a little bit more. When you're under glass, of course, it's not going to get too disturbed, but it's usually in the transportation, because sometimes I ship these to people in other states, and I have to put a piece of glassine. Have you ever heard of glassine? It's like, almost looks like wax paper, but you can buy it in large sheets at Blick, and I put this on a board and tape it all over, and then I put a mat on it, but then I put a piece of glassine over the whole thing, and it's
clear,
non-static.
like a clear plastic.
It's not a plastic, it's a light, like a waxy paper, and then it's non-static though. It doesn't have the electro, like to try to, because otherwise chalk will dust up onto glass even. So at least in shipping, it's not going to get as disturbed.
What do you ship them in?
I actually have either a cardboard box that this one lady in Safety Harbor saves them for me, and she cuts them down and she puts padding around it, but I usually have a piece of cardboard over the mat and under the mat, and then we put it inside a bubble wrap box. It's very light, it still doesn't cost much for shipping, but that way it's in the middle of bubble wrap and foam, what are those little foam popcorn?
You
Yeah.
let your customer frame their own picture then?
I don't frame them and send them. I frame them at home. These are my samples that I buy all pre-cut frames. This one doesn't even have a mat on it, but actually this is just to print off my copier. See, the original one I already gave to somebody, or I sold this one actually at the Sterling. The original went on sale at Sterling. Somebody bought it off the wall. I said, it's not your dog, but if you want it, you can have it. But most of them go to the owner.
You don't
So
frame
all of
them,
these
do you?
are just photocopies actually.
Do you mat them when you ship them?
I do mat them. I always present my work matted because it looks so much better.
I know.
And I buy my pre-cut mats at Blick, and they're like $4.97 for 8x10. Most of my pet portraits are 8x10. These are all 8x10, every single one of these. But this one has a mat, and so I always have that mat. That's my daughter's cat, so she has the original in her kitchen, and I got the copy.
So you don't send your pictures framed then?
I don't send them framed, no.
That'd be
I-
really hard, it'd be expensive.
Well, then it's just
too.
heavier, and the chance that the glass could break,
Yeah.
yeah. No, they frame them themselves, that's one thing I say, I send it with the mat, and then you can frame it. And that's pretty much it, that's as close as I'm gonna get for this kind of a show. What time are we at? We're at 2:30, and we have to kind of go by 2:45 and everything cleaned up. Any questions though? Anybody have any questions? How many of you have actually ever done a portrait in pastel? So a lot of you have experience with pastel. I know Pat does, because I see her at the model, we have a standing model at the Hale Center every